Hello, my friend. Stay a while and listen.
What's going on, guys? It's Filthy and I'm back with another video. Today we're taking a look at the Season 19 Tal Rasha Meteor push build. Now this is the starting set for the wizard and it is a very strong push build indeed. In the background you can see me do GR100, that's with about 1100 Paragon, but bear in mind guys, I don't have an ancient weapon, I don't have an ancient offhand, and in fact about half the pieces are not ancient and the gear is pretty crappily rolled with lots of room for growth. There's also only 3 low level augments on it, so as I say, plenty of room to grow. Now before we jump in, I just want to welcome anyone who's new to the channel. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already done so. As always guys, a thumbs up is appreciated. And for this particular build, we did put a vote on the channel as to what we were going to cover next. So if you do want to be involved in what's coming in the future on the channel, do subscribe and head over to the community tab and get involved. So jumping in and looking at the gear, obviously it's Tal Rasha, so we're going to take 5 pieces on the character and we're going to make that up to 6 pieces with a rogue in the cube. Now we're also going to be mixing Tals with Crimsons, and we're also going to be mixing it with Ogild's power. Now this really means that the build hits incredibly hard and also takes elites down very quickly, but in terms of which bits go where, you have to take Crimson's boots because there are no Tal's boots, so you can take the Tal's belt or the Crimson's, and the same for the trousers, so just mix and match whichever you get. Just make sure you do get meteor damage on your boots because that's very important. And then for the shoulders, there aren't any Tal shoulders, so obviously Ogild's can fit in here quite easily. And then obviously braces again, no Tal's braces, so Ogild's go in here. Now looking at Tal Rasha's, the 2-piece basically gives us a free meteor on an 8-second cooldown, so that's pretty nice. So the 4-piece is Arcane, Cold, Fire and Lightning attacks, each increase our resistances by 25% for 8 seconds. So provided we have one of each elemental type on the bar, we're going to get a bunch of resistances. We obviously will have this because if you look at the 6-piece, whenever we do attack and damage with one of these elements, we get 2000% extra damage for 8 seconds. So at 4 stacks we get 8000%, and interestingly, to maintain the 4 stacks we only have to swap between 2 different elements. So it should, provided we're paying attention, be 8000% damage modifier at all times, which is obviously pretty high. Now normally speaking guys, this is a build where you wouldn't really be bothered about cooldown, and resource cost reduction would be okay, but not something you need to gear for. But because of the Crimson set, we're going to change that around a little bit. What the 2-piece does is we get life per second, we get 20% cooldown and 20% resource cost reduction. But interestingly, on the 3-piece, every piece of extra cooldown we get is more damage, and every piece of resource cost reduction is more toughness. So we can actually make this build quite tough and tanky by taking extra resource cost rolls. We can also make it deal more damage by taking more cooldown rolls. And this is a pretty big modifier, and I do think it is worth taking. Now for the Ogild set, this is how we put down elites extremely quickly. So the 2-piece, we just get a general 15% damage reduction, which is obviously handy. We also get a nice 30% damage increase, so that's slightly more than taking the Mantle of Channeling in the shoulders. But importantly on the 3-piece, we also hit elites extremely hard because we get 30% extra damage. We also take 30% less damage. So generally speaking, what I've found is that elites aren't too much of a problem. We can take them down very quickly, and it's actually some of the lesser mobs that do quite a lot of damage that will hurt us a little bit. But still, GR100 with the kind of character that I've got, I think I've got to be pretty pleased with. So in the cube, we're going to take the Grand Vizier. This is a 2-handed staff, and it's basically going to give us a 400% modifier on Meteor, which is nice. We're also going to take Nilf's Boast. This will give us a 600% damage on Meteor unless we hit 3 or fewer enemies, in which case we get 900%. It's obviously very handy for the Rift Guardian. Now these have to go in the cube because we've got the Crimson's boots, but there's not much we can do to avoid that if we want to stack all those other modifiers. We're going to take the Deathwish Sword, so whilst we channel we get extra damage up to 325%. As I say guys, this is not ancient, so it's pretty crap. I would be doing a lot more damage with a much better sword. And we're also going to pair this with the Etched Sigil, so whilst we channel Ray of Frost, which is the skill we're going to be taking, we get up to 150% extra damage. We also cast one of our Arcane Spenders for free. Our Arcane Spender is going to be Meteor, it's the only one we've got on the bar. Obviously it just means that we get meteors from the sky. Now interestingly, we don't need Arcane Power on crit anymore because we do have enough resource cost reduction that we can just channel indefinitely, which is good because it frees up an extra stat for us. Rounding out the gear, we've got 2 more defensive stats, so we're going to go for a Halo of Carini. This is going to give us 80% damage reduction provided we electrocute something with storm armor more than 15 yards away. So we need to make sure that we jump out of 15 yard range every so often to proc this, because if it doesn't activate, 80% less damage reduction will pretty much get you killed most of the time, so you just need to keep a bit of an eye on managing this. And then lastly guys, we've gone for Unity. Again, we do get extra elite damage which helps us put them down, but we do get a 50% toughness buff, and obviously we need the follower with the Unity, and also they need to take the token that makes them invulnerable, but doubling a toughness is obviously very, very handy. As for the gems, we've gone for the Bane of the Trapped. That's just going to be a huge damage increase, so we want to be up close and personal with the enemy, extra damage. We're going to take a Taeguk, which is going to give us extra damage and also extra armor whilst we stand and channel, which is very nice. It will drop off because it only lasts 1.5 seconds, and that's going to be a slight pain is keeping this up, but when you do stop to do damage, you basically get more damage and you get more toughness. And then we've gone for Bane of the Powerful as well, 20% extra damage after killing an elite pack, and then 15% extra damage against elites and extra damage reduction. So pairing this with the Unity, pairing it with the Ogils, we do flatten elites very quickly, so it does make it quite nice. Now obviously at some point you're going to have to swap over to a Bane of the Stricken, but what I found is that at the moment I'm not quite there, and Bane of the Powerful is seeming to be the better choice for me. As for gems in the gear, we've gone for intelligence in the pants and chest, and then I've actually gone for resource cost reduction just to get extra mitigation in the helm, but if you wanted more damage you'd put a cooldown gem here as well. Now another item you could take instead of your Unity is a Convention of Elements. This will give you really nice spike damage when you roll around onto fire, but what I found is that I need the toughness at the moment, but maybe if you're a better player, you're willing to fish for better maps, or you can avoid damage much better than I can, you could take this and you would be able to push the build even further. But looking at the skills, we're going to take Ray of Frost, Cold Blood. This is going to be our cold source of damage for the Tal Rasha stacks. Cold Blood just reduces the arcane power, it means that we don't have any arcane problems at all. You could maybe swap for a different rune, but there's not really that much of any interest, so I tend to just go for the reduced arcane power cost. Arcane Torrent, Static Discharge, any lightning skill that damages can go here, this is just the one that I've used. Meteor, Meteor Shower, this is going to be the fire variant, so we want fire on our braces and our amulet. This to me just looks cool, and it's just the way that I like playing it, but you can obviously swap the rune on here, but you'd have to swap your skills as well. So this is basically the fire variant that I'm presenting. Storm Armor Scramble, this is here to proc that 80% damage reduction from the Halo of Carini. The 25% increased move speed is going to be helpful just in case we do want to reposition ourselves and we're not boxed in, but again you can choose whichever rune you want. I just like being able to run a little bit faster. Magic Weapon and Force Weapon, because we're not going for the Ashnagar's Blood Braces and trying to stack shields, we can now take Force Weapon and gain an extra 20% damage modifier, which is obviously quite handy. And then lastly, Teleport Calamity. This is going to be our arcane source of damage. It doesn't hurt the enemies at all, there's obviously not enough modifiers on it, but it will in theory technically damage them for arcane, and that's what gets us our 4th stack. So in terms of keeping up your Tal Rasha bonus, obviously you're going to be proccing cold all the time because this is how you're going to generate your meteors. Now Arcane Torrent on left click, you'll use that occasionally to keep up your Tal bonus, so left click and right click. In theory, Calamity will also proc your Tals, so you could just teleport and use Ray of Frost. But what I find is that you might want to go into an Oculus Circle, you might want to stand still, you might not want to use your teleport up and reposition. So I do tend to find that I'm using Arcane Torrent and Ray of Frost to swap my elements around and keep myself at 4 stacks. Now passive wise, there's 3 that I'm dead set on and 1 that I've been playing around with. So the dead set ones are Evocation for 20% extra cooldown. Because of the Crimsons, this is just more damage, which is nice. Unstable Anomaly, if our Storm Armor drops, we're going to be relying on this. You will get squished at GR 100 without that 80% damage reduction. And always guys, you can get sucked into explosions and get boxed in, so it's pretty handy and I wouldn't take it off. Audacity pairs really well with the Bane of the Trapped. If we're up close and personal, we're dealing extra damage. And last passive, I had initially played with Power Hungry just because I found that I was retreating quite a lot and I wanted to eke out a little bit more damage at range. But in the clear, I was actually using Unwavering Will. This basically, when we stand still, gives us extra armor, all res and damage. So again, quite handy and fits with the playstyle quite well. But the other one that I would consider is Illusionist, and this will basically mean that whenever we take damage or 15% of our life, we will reset the cooldown and teleport, so we can reposition ourselves and jump into an Oculus Circle. So Really, that or Unwavering Will are probably the way to go, but you've got choice of 3, so totally up to you. Now in terms of playstyle, enter the Rift, you want to pop Storm Armor, pop Magic Weapon, Force Weapon, you then want to activate all of your elements, and as I say, use Teleport to get around, and just channel Ray of Frost and occasionally hit Static Discharge just to make sure your Tal bonuses is up. Now if you do want to turn this into a speed build guide, Nemesis braces are obviously essential, so if we're going to lose the Ogild's bonus, we may as well pick different shoulders, and Mantle of Channeling seem perfect because we get extra damage and extra toughness from them. And obviously you can run the build with the Ashnagard's blood braces on if you want the extra shields. I just think you can output a bit more damage by using the Ogilds and taking out the elites, and that also does mean that we don't have to go for Stricken quite so early on. So in terms of stat priorities guys, we want to get cooldown wherever we can because that's going to be more damage from the Crimsons. Resource cost reduction is actually pretty nice because it means that we just get extra damage reduction, so each individual roll actually adds more than the percentage value, so if we get another roll of 8% it gives us more than 8% extra toughness. We don't need any area damage because we don't benefit from that from the automatically casted meteors. We want fire on our braces and also on our amulet, and we want meteor damage on boots, helm and also on offhand. And as I said earlier, we don't need any APOC on crit on the offhand because we've got enough resource cost reduction. So as always guys, there will be a D3 planner link with the ideal stats for both the push and also for a GR speed variant. The GR speed you want to play at least 5, maybe even 10 levels lower, just so that you can get through the content as quickly as possible. Now I probably wouldn't use this build for T16 because when I say speed build it is still a little bit slow because you don't have too much access to teleport or mobility, but I've done an explosive blast guide on the channel, so up to say GR 75-80, that'll do you some really nice 3.5 minute clears, good for getting keys. And also Frozen Orb I might cover on the channel before the season starts, we'll just have to see how it goes. But this is a lot of fun and it's really powerful, and just think guys, with ancient gear everywhere, augments, paragon and also importantly a season theme bonus, I would expect even a casual player should be able to punch past 110 with this without too much bother. That's it guys, that's the video. I hope you liked the build. Obviously we're using the new toys from the last patch and yeah, just something a little bit different. If you have enjoyed the video, a thumbs up is always appreciated and I'll catch you soon. Peace.